All right, Leah.
Very good. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the State Advisory Council quarterly meeting for July 28th. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending today. We greatly appreciate it. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we move into the meeting. If you are not speaking, if you would kindly remain on mute. We are recording this meeting. Also, if executive council members would kindly keep your camera on, if at all possible, we would greatly appreciate that. And if you would put your name and your organization in the chat as well, so that we have a record of who is attending this meeting, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Leah. I'm also going to add to the chat where you can find more information on the State Advisory Council, including the executive order and information around subcommittees. And I believe we pass it to you, Shante.
Yes, ma'am. Good. I had to look at the time. Good afternoon, everyone. So I really wanted to just take some time to share some feedback, share some things that are happening. But most importantly, I wanted to take the time to address this SAC engagement and feedback. We did receive some feedback that sometimes some folks are not feeling as heard or getting time to be able to share their feedback and their thoughts. And so we're going to be really committed to making more time during these meetings for you to be able to do that. But then also wanted to share some other ways that we are taking in any of the feedback that you provide, any of the things that we hear out in the field. So first, I'll just start with our Lori Listen session. So tomorrow, so Tuesday, July 29th, a small group of early childhood education leaders from across Pennsylvania will actually convene at the governor's residence for an invitation-only listening session that will be hosted by the First Lady, Lori Shapiro. This is an in-person session, so there are no virtual options, to really focus on gathering direct feedback about the Pennsylvania Professional Development, or the PD registry. We want to hear about its strengths, its challenges, any opportunities for improvement. And the participants will engage in a facilitated discussion, preview some new systems tools, and really help shape future policy and enhancements for the registry. So 10 out of the 12 providers invited are actual SAC or SAC subcommittee members. So just wanted to show one way that we are super committed to making sure that we are engaging all of you in these ongoing improvements and processes in the ECE system. In addition, we had the Department of Health really focused on, I know this is a pain point for a lot of our providers, the immunization collection. DOH Representative Desiree Weiser actually joined our last SAC quarterly meeting to really gather feedback for the next immunization collection survey. I think that information just recently went out. And after that presentation, a focus group was held with her team and 6 childcare directors to further refine how this process could be less burdensome for childcare providers while still ensuring this important information is actually tracked. Feedback taken from the SAC was actually utilized to do this 2025 immunization collection, and it has edits to the formats on the form and includes notification to those who have already completed the survey. And it will give you the ability to actually save content and return to the form, because I know that was a big part of the feedback as well. And a supporting document will clarify the names of vaccines, which can vary between generic and brand names. And that was actually recommended, as well as a follow-up reminder email and of support from the certification staff. This announcement actually went out on July 16th with the recommended support documents linked within the announcement. So was really glad that our providers were able to provide feedback around that process. In addition, the Professional Development Subcommittee actually used the OCDEL conference, the PKC conference, or the pre-K counts, the pre-K counts conference and the First Up conference to gather feedback from providers around ongoing professional development and what we call the PQAS process, so the quality assurance system. That feedback is being analyzed by the registry team, who will then provide a synopsis of the trends, which will be shared with the SAC or our advisory council and used during discussion around increasing level 3 courses in the registry. We also wanted to hear how OCDEL can support providers who are interested in becoming PQA certified and ensure ongoing professional development needs from the field are actually represented in the PD registry. Christy's going to speak a little bit more to this during the PD subcommittee update, but just wanted to let you know that we are listening to you. And then we are also thinking about Compass or our provider self-service and the feedback that is there. So from our Compass and provider self-service team, or the Access to Programs subcommittee, they participated in discovery sessions around Compass's Find Childcare feature. And the feedback was gathered and analyzed and shared with the Pelican steering team to be used as changes and updates are scheduled. There will be a similar project soon as we do a discovery session around PSS to gather feedback with the goal to increase. This is a goal that I cannot stress enough. So I'm excited to be able to say it. But our goal is to actually increase provider utilization of provider self-service, especially the features that will help us track capacity, availability, and waitlist information. So once this feedback is analyzed and the necessary changes are made, we are going to do a targeted campaign to promote the use of provider self-service. Now, I know the Access to Program folks might be on this call and say, hey, Ms. Brown, we've been giving you this feedback for a really long time. And I will receive that. We acknowledge that. But these systems changes, they're very expensive and they do take a lot of time. So please note that what we typically do with our systems changes is we kind of weight them. And a lot of the focus on these upcoming changes are going to focus on the 2024 final rule for compliance with CCDBG. But once we work through those compliance requirements, we will definitely start to focus on Compass and provider self-service. So we are definitely hearing you and tracking this feedback as well. And then we'd be remiss if we did not talk about the market rate survey. It is coming. So all SAC members were invited to the last childcare quality rating subcommittee meeting on June 26th to participate in a partnership with Penn State or our ISRA team, the research team, where they were able to really share feedback and recommendations for the upcoming MRS. The feedback was shared for a week, and after that meeting, went directly to the ISRA team, who is developing the MRS and the narrow cost analysis. I think Phil and Neil, I love saying their names. It reminds me of my favorite cartoon. But Phil and Neil are here today, and we'll speak a little bit more about the MRS process in just a few minutes. And then finally, we got to talk about the rapid response teams. We did receive feedback. The subcommittee from the Physical, Behavioral, and Mental Health Subcommittee, they actually used that last meeting as a feedback session around the rapid response team's experiences and gave us tons of valuable feedback that was shared with us to use during the current and ongoing planning for the rapid response teams. We understand that they will be ending, but we still need to know what those needs are as we planned for supports moving forward. So Brandy Fox is actually going to dive into our rapid response team conversation now to speak what we've learned through our rapid response team's pilots and any next steps. But just please know that we hear you, we are listening, and we are working to implement changes just about daily. So I'll pass it off to Brandy.
Thank you, Shantae. Good afternoon, Brandy Fox from the Pennsylvania Key. I do all things infant, early childhood mental health, but also am the strategy lead for rapid response teams under the preschool development grant. So just wanted to give you a quick update around the information that we shared in May to the rapid response grantees. There are 19 of them, all kind of grounded in an ELRC region. You can go to the next slide, Netta. Just to give you a sense of the timeline of PDG, I'm sure none of this is really surprising to you, with the exception of that the Administration for Children and Families is not allowing a no-cost extension. So really what that means is the majority of our PDG funding needs to be obligated by December 30th and the project's wrapped up by March 31st. So this does mean that the funding for rapid response teams is going to be ending. Go ahead and move forward. So a few of the things that we kind of learned through this pilot, this 19 grantee pilot, and we collected these through quarterly data reports as well as an annual report where I met with each of the grantees for a one-on-one meeting to kind of dive into what they've learned and what they've done. And so globally across all the rapid response grantees, we saw that the majority of the services of the person kind of going out to respond to a program were really centered on teacher practices, high quality supportive environments, developmentally appropriate practices, a lot of routines-based strategies that we know teachers can use to kind of reduce the likelihood that a little person is going to use a big behavior to get their needs met. Go back one or forward. There we go. We also saw that the rapid response grantees were doing a lot of kind of, in addition to those teacher practices, really building the capacity and the workforce knowledge, competencies, and competence in their role through professional development, through coaching around certain types of strategies. And then we also heard from the rapid response grantees that they really feel like there's a need to continue to build early childhood directors or administrators' skill sets, knowledge, competencies, confidence in their role, in their program philosophy, so that they, in their leadership role, can continue to support their teachers via supervision, observation, coaching, so internal capacity around some of the needs that our educators have. We can move to the next slide. So all that encompassing, so we had to tell the rapid response grantees that PDG funding is ending. And we recognize that there's probably some dollars in there that they need to potentially reallocate to a different support service in conjunction with deploying a rapid responder to a program. So we kind of use the data reports in our annual report themes and drilled down to 3 complementary buckets that they can do in coinciding with deploying a rapid responder to a program. Go ahead and go to the next one, Netta. So really, we focused in on professional development strategies, that we are allowing those rapid response grantees to host kind of professional development events or share information on certain topics, whether that is director or leader focused training. It might be training around trauma-informed practices, social emotional development, positive behavior intervention supports, or positive guidance. So we kind of gave them a list, like you can really think about what are the professional development needs of the workforce in your region. Next slide, please. We also kind of pulled information and themes from those reports around the need or the desire of those grantees to put resources in the hands of their workforce in their region. So we're allowing them to invest PDG funding around providing resources to programs, and that could be like books that support social emotional development, social emotional literacy. It might be social emotional curriculum kits. It might be bulk printing of really helpful teacher strategies that they can use in their program. And of course, other resources that they might submit for approval. And the next slide. And then we also kind of allowed them to think about family engagement. And it's not necessarily the grantees doing the family engagement, but it is really focused on building the capacity of early childhood programs to enhance it and build capacity in their own family engagement. So that might be helping programs think about parent cafes, training around, how do we help programs host information nights with families and bring them in around positive guidance or behaviors or social emotional development, strengthening families, promotion of universal screening or tools like the CDC Act Early, where families can track their child's developmental milestones and be able to go to a pediatrician if they have concerns. So we just kind of identified 3 buckets, large, broad buckets that those grantees can also invest their PDG funding in before the end of the calendar year. And I just want to reiterate, as we've reiterated with both the SAC subcommittees as well as the rapid response grantees, is that OCDEL, the Pennsylvania Key, all of us really recognize the important work that the rapid response grantees have done and how they've been improving outcomes and supporting the workforce in supporting our little people in childcare. All of the rapid response data collected over the course of the grant and through December 2025 will be analyzed, will be used by OCDEL, the SAC, the different work groups in thinking about how do we really use the information to do some CQI in our existing system of support, and that the themes through this pilot really help us think about strengthening our professional development approaches, really working with our workforce around best practices and positive behavior guidance so that we reduce expulsion suspension, and as well as kind of thinking about how do we utilize our quality coaches, my team, our mental health consultants, inclusion support specialists at the regional keys to really garner as much support as we can for the workforce. So that's my report. I will open it up for any questions, either verbally or in the chat, if there are any.
Brandy, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we'll have time at the end for additional questions. Will you be sticking around?
Yeah, I'll stick around.
Okay, thank you so much. Netta, are we ready to move to legislative updates?
Yes, and also Brandy joined us from vacation and took the time
I'm
for
so
this meeting. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, Brandy, if you want to return to your family vacation, we will make sure to follow up with you if there's questions. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Brandy. Appreciate it. And before we move to Nicole, I just want to take a moment to welcome Stephen Williams from the Lieutenant Governor's Office, who's joining us today to see what we're all about. So welcome, Stephen. And Nicole, if you would kindly take us into the world of legislative updates.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Hendrickson, Deputy Director of Government Relations at PDE. Happy June 58th, as we say here in the Legislative Office, because we are still waiting for a budget to be passed. So we are still in the month of June in the Ledge world. Thank you for having me today. I understand that there are a number of folks who are interested in particular in some of the teacher certification bills that were moving through the legislature earlier this summer. I can provide a brief update about House Bill 1407, which provides flexibility within the certification grade spans, and happy to take any questions afterwards if there are kind of specific things that I didn't hit on. So House Bill 1407, which was sponsored by Representative Napoleon Nelson, the goal of it is to update teacher certification levels to provide enhanced flexibility and meet existing educator workforce needs. So the bill looks very different than when it was first introduced. It was amended on the floor with a compromise amendment earlier this month that took into consideration a lot of different stakeholder feedback that Chairman Schweier had received. It received final passage in the House and is now waiting in the Senate Education Committee. A couple highlights of the new printer's number of the bill. So the new teacher certification grade spans would be as follows. There'd be a primary grade span, which covers pre-K through 6th grade, a secondary grade span, which is 7th through 12th grades, and then a specialized area certificate, which is pre-K through 12th grade. The bill also provides a number of different flexibilities within there, both with folks who have existing certificates. It allows the secretary to provide existing flexibility, but those are kind of the new, that's the new paradigm that the legislature wants to see moving forward. The bill provides 2 different pathways for existing certificate holders to expand their certificate to meet the new grade levels. One is taking additional continuing education credits for a specific certification area. The second pathway is attaining a qualifying score on an assessment that will be made available by the department. Now, things that I'm sure this group is most interested in, some of the things that were included in the amendment were specific to early childhood education. I know that there were a number of stakeholders who wanted to ensure that if the primary certificate level was going to meet the needs of early childhood education, then the educator prep programs should make sure that teachers are prepared with the specific skills needed to teach younger children. So the bill includes a requirement for the new primary certificate for educators to complete a minimum of 30 credit hours in early childhood coursework. And the bill delineates kind of specific topics that should be covered in that training. It also allows individuals who are enrolled in programs to fulfill their student teacher training in early childhood education settings. So again, trying to continue to support and provide the background that is needed for that primary level to cover the unique skills required for early childhood education. But again, still allowing that enhanced flexibility for teachers to move, from pre-K up to 6 and from 6 down to pre-K, depending on their own personal, career pathways and the needs of their communities. So that is sort of the overview that I have. Happy to take any questions if folks want to know more about House Bill 1407. Not seeing any in the chat. I'll give another second, but I know that up next, I think, was Carolyn to talk about the employer child care contribution tax credit.
Thank you, Nicole. Do you know how long it may take to get that legislation, the 1407, through?
That is, my legislative crystal ball is hit or miss. I will say this is a priority of the majority chairman of the House Education Committee. I know this is something he really wants to see happen. So if it were up to him, it would be done already. But as you all know, we are in the midst of budget negotiations right now, and we will see what will be traded for what. So, like I said, top priority for the House. We'll have to see what the Senate counters with.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Carolyn, I believe you're up next with the employer child care contribution tax credit.
Yeah, hi everyone. Filling in for the Department of Revenue, reached out to them for some updates on the employer child care contribution tax credit. They didn't have any additional or new information to provide since they were last with SAC. So just sharing kind of the general overview of the program. And if there's any questions that attendees have that you would like Netta or myself to relay to the Department of Revenue, feel free to ask them now, or might be a little more convenient to put them in the chat and we can make sure to get you an answer. Or feel free to reach out to Catherine, whose contact information is on the slide. So I don't have any real information to share since Revenue didn't have any updates, but feel free if there's any specific questions, we can, Netta and I can make sure that you guys get an answer.
Yes, thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks.
All right, so next up, we're going to dive into our subcommittee updates, but we do have some public participation today. So I just want to briefly outline the structure of the State Advisory Council. The exec SAC that we refer to is the quarterly meeting here today. That is a group of 30 members that are appointed by the governor. Each of those 30 council members is assigned to one of the 5 underlying subcommittees, and the subcommittees are chaired by one exec SAC council member and one OCDEL staffer that's directly tied to the work. So we will start off with Adrian for access to programs, and Adrian is one of our home-based childcare providers, State Advisory Council member and co-chair of access to programs.
Good afternoon. So I'm here, like Netta just said, access to programs, and I'm just going to share our mission statement with you. It's short. So this subcommittee focuses on identifying and addressing barriers that families face and accessing high-quality early childhood education and care programs. The subcommittee aims to ensure that all children, regardless of their socioeconomic status, location, or other circumstances, have equitable access to programs that support their developmental and educational needs. Next slide. Okay, so our work group has been working on grant-funded initiatives, and that work group will support the Building Comprehensive Network grant from the Homegrown, which is focusing on strengthening Pennsylvania's home-based child care systems through strategic activities. We've also been working on recruitment and building capacity. So I'm not going to read each thing, but I'm just going to share the topics of it. We've also been providing input on the well-being of our educators and that whole system. Is Shannon here, or I'm going to take up that part now?
I'm here.
If you, either one of you can do the systems work group update.
Sure, I can cover the work group systems.
Thank you.
Basically, we're working on improving the systems that enhance access to childcare services. Basically, that includes Compass with the findchildcare.gov and also the provider self-service systems. And I'm not going to read through all the bullets, but those are the challenges that we're working with.
Thank you both so much. If you have any questions related to either work group or access to programs as a whole, feel free to reach out with those. Is Emily here today? Know that I saw her name on the list.
Hi, everybody.
hi.
Good afternoon.
Thanks so much, Emily.
Alrighty, so our subcommittee is a childcare certification and quality rating. We've made a lot of progress since our last meeting. As some of you may recall, our group actually divided into two groups, a STAR survey group and a data request group. Using some of the discussions that we had and some of the feedback received through the market rate survey, Estra is working on a survey with some preliminary questions that we collaborated on. Those questions are going to be posed to quality coaches to address some of the deficiencies and propose some improvements as we continue our efforts to improve quality in early childhood education. Once we receive that feedback, we will be reviewing it and address them at our next meeting.
Thank you so much, Emily. And I just to clarify that the feedback received in the June subcommittee meeting is separate from that of the feedback questions for quality coaches. The feedback for the MRS and the narrow cost analysis, Shantae spoke to a bit, and Phil and his team are going to speak to a bit more. CCQR, childcare certification and quality rating, they are really looking at stars in the quality side of things, and they had the excellent idea to create some feedback questions for quality coaches. So those feedback questions were taken to the quality coaches connections call in July, and the subcommittee's next steps are to review the feedback from that. Well done, Emily. Thank you. Carol?
Great. So we're the Diversity, Inclusion, Equity, and Belonging work group. And this subcommittee is dedicated to promoting equitable access to high quality early childhood education and care for all children and families. The subcommittee works to ensure that diversity is embraced, equity is prioritized, inclusion is practiced, and a sense of belonging is fostered throughout Pennsylvania's early childhood systems. DEIB is charged with the equitable transition of new SAC committee memberships as well, ensuring that we can have folks serve on the subcommittees, not the governor appointed, but on the subcommittees, and ensuring that there's an equitable way to do that. Okay, so you're familiar with this chart that we've used, and it now has been updated with the status. So I'll just walk you through this. We've completed, as you know, a provider-facing survey and a family-facing survey. And those surveys aim to assess the resources that are available around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and the training needs that are available to families and providers, and to identify what resources they need. Both surveys that were completed, the family-facing survey and the provider-facing survey, went through the OCDEL routing process and didn't pass due to the fact that, and quite rightfully so, in this current environment, it wasn't deemed prudent. And, committee members like us agree for OCDEL to send out this survey in the current climate that we're facing. So we received this information after it made it through the process a few weeks ago. And the committee, we had a very rigorous conversation around next steps for this. And we have been exploring 3 potential next steps. One of which is to rewrite some of the language to see if, if we change some terminology, if that may work, and have it just change some terminology, which, wasn't our first choice, because we think that would we'd make a lot of effort there. And we're not sure it would pass the routing process. Again, the second option that we explored was whether or not we could perhaps take some key questions and insert them in some surveys that the SAC is already distributing, because we heard that any number of subcommittees already had surveys as well. So we are very interested in finding out if there are a couple of key questions that we can have inserted in those surveys. The third option that we consider seems the most viable, which is to have the survey be disseminated by SAC members who, that wouldn't be OCDEL in this sense. And we actually have a couple of SAC members who have indicated, with their own entities, they'd be willing to disseminate the surveys. So we are exploring those, but also open to having survey questions in other surveys. So if there are other committees here doing surveys that would like to explore that with us, we're interested in having that conversation. So that's the status of that first, and we say it's on hold. The second aspect of our work was, we were analyzing data from the PD registry to look for what is really available. What is the current state in terms of trainings that's available to the field? So that aspect is complete. We have surveyed the registry and done an analysis of the trainings that are complete. So that piece is a companion to the survey piece. We know what exists in the registry, and we are looking to see what people need. Okay, so that piece, as I said, is complete. The third portion of this was around cohesion between the ECE field and OCDEL. And this first part is about creating an equitable process for new SAC subcommittee members to join. And to that end, we have completed an application and some criteria and a rubric. And we have, through various conferences that have taken place, put some information out to find out the interest level of folk have in terms of participating on some of the subcommittees. And we have about just short of, I think, 20 people that are interested. I think some are present here just as public participants today. But our thinking is we are going to route those folk through this process that we have structured as a pilot group to see what the gaps are in our process for being able to ensure that we have diverse representation in all these committees. So we're going to have them be a pilot group and then use that to refine the process that we have to ensure that we have representation, appropriate representation on all the subcommittees. So that's the third piece that's currently in process. And last but not least, OCDEL has a DEI a mission and a plan to embed. OCDEL has really done some work on their own DEIB work, and we want to make sure that the work that OCDEL is doing internally, that the subcommittee, that we're also walking hand in hand and really aligning that work. So that's the work that's up next for us.
Great, Carol. Thanks so much. I think the only thing that you had wanted to flag here was the survey for current SAC and subcommittee members to gather
yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for reminding me that. Yeah, so one of the things that we are going to be using, thanks Netta, you always capture things. We want to make sure that we know what is the current, the demographics and skill level and capacity level of current SAC members, and including committee members. So you will be getting a survey so that we can gather that profile information, because as Netta said, that's the baseline for us in order to know where we need to grow and what's missing. whether it be rural representation, suburban representation by race or gender or skill type. We need to be able to have that baseline. So please be on the lookout for that survey, quote unquote, we'll call it, that information, so that we can gather that information from you.
Wonderful, Carol. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Physical, Behavioral, and Mental Health Subcommittee. Both co-chairs are actually, they have conflicts today, so I'm filling in for them. I'll pause long enough for you to read their mission statement. And this work, PBMH meets every other month. They have 2 work groups. Work group 1 is meeting monthly. That is the team that provided lots of valuable feedback for RRT that we've discussed at length so far. And they will continue to meet monthly, gathering resources and needs of providers managing difficult and sometimes dangerous behaviors. So work group 2 is pausing for the summer. Their main focus is going to be providing feedback on the positive behavior support document that will go to public comment. And as soon as we have dates for public comment, that will be advertised to the Executive Council as well as the subcommittee. And Christy, I think I pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So as Netta said, my name's Christy Lieto. I'm the co-chair with Barry for the Professional Development Subcommittee. So you can see our mission here on the screen, but I really want to be able to spend the time going over our 2 different work groups that we have. So as you can see, we broke out into an ongoing professional development work group, which also meets monthly and is led by Jessica. And then we also have another work group that focuses on the unmet needs for professional development, again, meets monthly and is led by Jen. So if we want to go on to the ongoing PD work group, this group has been actively working, like Shantae had said, from gathering feedback from providers around the ongoing PD needs, as well as the PQOS needs. As Shantae had mentioned, that this feedback is being analyzed by the registry team, and the synopsis is going to be reviewed by the PD subcommittee and this group as well in October. However, one of the things that we noticed just after initial review is that there's really a strong need for the increased level 3 offerings. That is something, so just for those of you who may not be familiar with competency levels, so there's a competency level 1, 2, and 3. And through these surveys and the feedback, there really is, like I said, on that level 3 is what folks are saying, hey, we need some more on the level 3. So just so you understand, the competency level 1 is really the base. So these are individuals that they have an understanding of the content within the knowledge area and how it relates through their daily practices with children and families. These folks, they implement program guidelines and policies demonstrating a commitment to professionalism and the provision of best practices for children and families in their everyday work. And folks that are at level 1, these level 1 professionals, they understand, identify, describe, define, and explain. So that kind of gives you an overview of the level 1. Level 2, then, these are professionals who they demonstrate all of the skills that I just went over in level 1, but in addition to that, they actually demonstrate the ability to apply the content within each of those knowledge areas in practice. So they are the ones that are, they're able to adapt the environments to accommodate the children's individual needs and learning styles. And these are the individuals that mentor others and demonstrate the use of the skills and knowledge to others. So level 2 professionals, they apply, develop, explore, practice, and implement. And the level 3, which is the level that we're saying that is definitely needs more of. These are individuals that they demonstrate over. But in addition to that, they're the ones that they have the ability to analyze and assess the information as part of the cycle of continuous quality improvement within the home, classroom, or program setting. Level 3 mastery includes demonstration of leadership skills that advance the use of best practice within the content area, in the program setting, and in the community. And these professionals are able to analyze, research, critically examine, and design. So through this work group, we are targeting outreach to those providers that do have the interest in mentoring and those with interest in becoming PQUAS certified. So, and again, we are working with PQUAS to address the need for the level 3 PD as well. Any questions on that one? No? Okay. And then the second group with the unmet needs. As you can see here that we have the priorities listed up above or on the screen here. So we were specifically looking at the assessment of unmet needs, funding adequacy, waitlist tracking, provider eligibility, and protocol development. Now, the formal recommendation is pending for this group, but it's likely going to focus on emphasizing the need for standardized data collection across all PDOs. So we're using the detailed PASHE PDO format as a model to consistently capture unmet needs, wait lists, and enrollment challenges. So to improve the student tracking and program alignment, it's recommended that all TEACH applicants be entered into the PD registry, allowing OCDEL to better assess TEACH's role in serving individuals ineligible for other funding sources. Additionally, the recommendations call for a review and potential revision of eligibility criteria and supports across TEACH, PDOs, and Rising Stars tuition assistance, particularly addressing the income limits, the application barriers, communication clarity, and funding gaps. And then the PD subcommittee is also in the process of drafting a proposal to modify the registered apprenticeship for ECE. So this proposal was actually initiated with the unmet need work group who had experienced some frustrations from providers working with the ATO, which is the Apprenticeship and Training Office of Labor and Industry, and what is working with the higher ed institutions and those overlapping. The vision of this document is to reform Pennsylvania's registered apprenticeship model for ECE to better align with the unique realities of the field. It seeks to reduce barriers for participation, especially for small and home-based providers, by modifying the journey worker requirement and shifting from time-based to competency-based training. These changes aim to create a more accessible, equitable, and effective pathway for ECE professionals within the registered apprenticeship model. So that's where both of those work groups are currently. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks.
Great job, Christy. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to pause for a second. If there are any questions, concerns, suggestions for subcommittees, now would be a great time. You can also add anything to the chat or reach out to them directly. Next up, we're moving in the agenda to addressing ECE workforce development with Shantae starting off on the budget.
As many of you know, the Pennsylvania General Assembly has not yet enacted the 25-26 budget into law. It does include, I believe we went over these things before, but for anyone new on the call, the proposed budget does include 3 key budget proposals focused on early childhood education and care. The first being the child care workforce and recruitment and retention. These are bonuses and awards that will be offered for either recruitment, up to $1,000 for either recruitment or retention for child care staff. Those are for certified child care providers. And that's how it's been proposed, but we are awaiting the passage of the budget. This would also include increases for our pre-K counts program and an increase for early intervention. However, And I'll state it again. The Pennsylvania General Assembly has not yet enacted the 25-26 budget into law. The governor continues to negotiate with leaders in both the House and the Senate to finalize the budget for the fiscal year 25-26. And there's been some steps put in place to enable the Commonwealth to meet some of its legal obligation to fund certain mandated programs and provide for the health, safety, and welfare of residents. But it is not all programs. Examples of programs where payments are not impacted could include medical assistance, cash assistance, food and drug purchases for state facilities, Medicare Parts A and B buy-ins, and child care subsidy payments. So as soon as we have any updates about the budget, I will share with the team so that we could update you accordingly. Questions? Alrighty. I don't think I understand your question, Diane.
So when we talk about subsidy payments, Shantae, are we talking about both the CCW payment and the STARS add-on, or just the CCW side of it?
Usually it's just the subsidy payments, but I can get clarity from the budgeting team.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Diane. That's a good question. Anything else before we move on? All right, Louisa.
Thank you, Netta. Good afternoon, everyone. Louisa Oliva-Wolf, Director of the Bureau of Early Learning Policy and Professional Development. Happy to share a few updates with the SAC committee today. If you can move on to the next slide. So first, we are happy to announce the organizations awarded for the next PDO 5-year grant cycle. The most notable change here is the transition in the Northwest region to the Northwest Institute of Research, or NWIR, which is also the ELRC for the region. So currently our team is working to support the previous grantee for the region, PASHI, with transitions to the new grantee, NWIR. During this transition period, the team is reviewing information with both grantees, reviewing policy, supporting partnership conversations with institutes of higher education, as well as among the PDOs themselves. Our goal is to support currently enrolled students and assure there's no lapse in services to students in this region. It's also important to note that overall funding for PDOs is reduced from 19 million to 13 million due to no longer having PDG funds to support this work. So we are creating a prioritization plan. We've shared this with the PDOs. Prioritization of funded students must include continued funding for currently enrolled students based on their ongoing commitment to those educational goals. And I do have the priority list, which I will happily put in the chat at the end of my slides. I'm going to move on to a really exciting announcement that we wanted to share with all of you. So it's part of the work that OCDEL has been doing, and you've heard it in this meeting in different arenas, is really a focus on the workforce and a focus on identifying whether we're being responsive to the workforce as it is today. So we've been taking a look at our career pathway and listening to feedback from the field, hosting opportunities for stakeholders, and the initial feedback really aligns to this idea that the career pathway deserves a reimagining, if you will. So we've heard that the pathway can be confusing and needs options for related careers, related degrees, on-the-job experience, and providers also have shared that the pathway could be a helpful tool to show the professionalism, to show the growth, and to address compensation. So early in the year, in May, OCDEL hosted an internal workshop with leadership from the Pennsylvania Key and leadership from OCDEL to determine how might we be more responsive to the current workforce with our career pathway. And we identified a true need to improve the pathway based on current research, feedback from surveys, that all the surveys that we've talked about today, and some momentum from other states that are really looking to be more responsive to the current needs of the field and identifying opportunities for learning beyond the traditional higher educational pathways. Thanks. Serendipitously, the National ECE Workforce Center issued a call for applications for an action research partnership. This is a technical assistance opportunity provided to states to promote effective career pathways with a focus on integrating credit for prior work experience, imagine credit stacking or stackable opportunities for this, and integrating professional development in a more meaningful way. The next slide shows you the specifics around what it means to have an action research partnership. These are really designed to be evidence-based, informed by the workforce, and grounded in human-centered design. The next one, thanks. So the vision again for this action research partnership is a short-term 12-month engagement with the National ECE Workforce Center. There is a change team that's coordinated to support this work, which includes members of the provider community and another place where we will have an opportunity for outreach with SAC. So I'm happy to announce that Pennsylvania has been selected to be part of this cohort. This is hot off the press. We got the announcement last Friday. And so we are looking to engage some members of this team. So some of you will have some follow-up to join our change team. We've identified our internal change team. I love all the applause, yes. And so we're really excited to move this work forward. I want to share some of the overarching goals that were included in our application, just so you get a scope of what we're thinking of. Again, these are broad goals that we identified initially with some of the feedback that we received, and we hope to refine these a bit further with the work with the National ECE Workforce Center. Expanding the breadth and depth of the ECE workforce, this is really an opportunity to shift the narrative of our industry and show the myriad careers available within our field. If we showcase those opportunities, we might leverage an opportunity for us to be a more viable workforce, a more viable industry for folks that are looking to get into education, and really putting ourselves in the forefront of all that encompasses early childhood education. We're still going to have the direct service roles remain the focus of a refined career pathway, but we want to be able to help people visualize themselves within a collaborative system that's really meant to support children and families. We want to find ways to identify and quantify experience. The current pathway does not weigh years of experience, and it limits some opportunities for folks who only have a GED or a CDA. But we recognize that folks that have been in the field for a long time carry so much institutional knowledge with them. And so we want to find a way to quantify that experience. Credit for prior learning is an opportunity to identify prior learning that could be relevant to the work in ECE. Some examples of this could include social work, and that's near and dear to my heart as a social worker, pediatric nursing experiences, business administration, leadership experiences, all of these things that really bring value to the individual and to our workforce, but we don't really have a way to acknowledge in our career pathway as it stands. We want to integrate micro-credentials, certificates, specializations, thinking about some of the training offered by PBIS or infant educators. A revised career pathway would seek to offer credit for these experiences as an acknowledgement to the improved quality and commitment made by folks that are participating in these programs. And finally, we want to develop a competency-based model. So thinking about how we can leverage our ELS to identify places where practitioners really excel. So I heard a lot about that mentorship and that level 3 trainings. How can we develop a competency-based model to identify folks that are really excelling in some of those areas? So all of these, again, very general, very big, very broad goals, but were included in our application and were a result of some conversations that we had with practitioners and internally. So what comes next? So some of our future planning, we are going to leverage a lot of the data that we already are collecting because we work smarter, not harder. So we know we have the Israel Workforce Survey that's coming with more detailed results. We have our Lori Listen events tomorrow. We've already had some discussion with homegrown programs about what could be more reflective in a new pathway, and we'll continue to have those. And then there's lots of conferences that are coming up in the fall. Of course, we will continue to coordinate with SAC and some of the subcommittees, and we will plan for specific stakeholder engagement events. I will answer all questions at the end because I just have 2 more slides, if that's okay. Switching gears just a little bit, just wanted to announce that this is a really exciting opportunity that's coming. So we will be moving away from reimbursement for foreign degree evaluation. If you or someone on your team has ever experienced this process, typically you submit a reimbursement form to have your foreign degree evaluated, and they have to be evaluated by certain organizations. So this caused a challenge for many folks, right? Paying that fee up front can be a challenge to providers. So through an RFP process, we were able to identify Education Credential Evaluators. Their acronym is ECE, only to make it more confusing. But we've identified an opportunity for providers to pay only 10% of the cost upfront. So this is $1,750 for a general report, so a high school degree or equivalent, and $2,750 for a course-by-course evaluation, which are your higher ed degrees. So we're currently in the process of working with ECE to create that portal, to set out really good communication to the provider community and let them know that this is coming, but I'm really excited to share it with SAC today. And then finally, just another note, with the new PDO contracts, we are no longer able to offer first aid and CPR. This was an initiative that was really meant to support providers when we transitioned policy for first aid and CPR. And so we're trying to create an opportunity to build a bridge essentially between now and March of next year. We're working with Excels, myself, and the PA Key in order to continue offering some level of support to the provider community. And I want to thank SAC for your feedback about what that support could look like, because we've definitely been using that integration in our planning. So that was a lot for me. I will look at the chat.
That's okay. I have it for you, Louisa.
Thank you, Netta. You're the best.
No problem. For reimagining the pathway, Steve's question would be, will this ultimately result in regulatory changes?
So we will be working closely with certification, obviously, to make sure that those things align. There are some regulatory changes in draft that speak about the level of either certification or degree for different staff folks, but we will make sure that those things align and certification will be represented on our change team.
I also just would like to note that this is not something that is happening overnight. So when we talk about regulatory changes, anytime we need to do a regulatory change or be thoughtful around something that has a huge impact on what is considered in our regs, we will be taking the necessary time to not only put together a plan for this, but also implementation. So even with our regulatory rewrite, those regs are not going to go into effect as soon as they're passed through IRC. There is time for us to be thoughtful around implementation.
Thank you, Shante. And then I see Carissa's question. Yeah, follow up with Netta. We want provider representation on our change team. It's also limited in size. But even if that provider is not part of the change team itself, we will absolutely have opportunities for stakeholder conversations that would include a broader reach, right? So think of listen and learn at a conference or a lunch and learn, or even online opportunities for us to hear feedback. We really want this to be responsive to the needs of the field, and we want to hear directly from folks that are impacted by this change.
I think the only thing remaining was Steve's follow-up question, will there be a press release?
We are working on our communication plan. Like I said, this is hot off the press. So we wanted to make sure we shared it with SAC, and we are continuing to have those conversations with the National ECE Workforce Center as well, so we can be intentional on our communication.
If I can just piggyback on that and ask a clarifying question, because of some of the conversations that are happening in particularly the House Republican Policy Committee, would OCDEL, in issuing a press release, is this something that you would also ensure that the General Assembly maybe gets a direct update on, given some of the conversations that are happening?
I think everybody's quiet because they're waiting for me. So we did not have a necessary plan to alert the General Assembly the way that you're thinking. We do have ongoing quarterly meetings with them about some of our other programs and get to share like a lot of the work that we're doing based off of those quarterly meetings. So it probably would be shared that way. We've also been sharing one-pagers ongoing with members of both the Senate and the House. So those are the ways that we would share. But to talk about a long-term extended communications connection, we hadn't thought about that at this particular time.
I assume, Shantae, there's no objection to Diane or myself sharing whatever press release comes out on this initiative with legislative offices.
That's fine.
Okay.
And I just want to thank everyone for your excitement around this project. I can tell that this is something that really is going to have a great impact on the field. So I appreciate your partnership.
Exactly. Thank you, Louisa. Continue to add to the chat if you have any follow-up for Louisa, or shoot her an email. And I think next up is Aaron, CQI.
Yep. Netta, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. I'm always a little weary with Zoom, so I like to check. Good afternoon, everyone. Just a little quick update on CQI awards. If you guys subscribe to the Early Ed News, you guys will know from this morning that we sent out a little teaser email letting everyone know we're going to continue with the CQI awards in the 2025-26 fiscal year. I have a little bit of just kind of back of the envelope data here on the 24-25 CQI awards. These are the awards that just ended this past June 30th. We had about 3,000 star 2, 3, and 4 providers receive an award. Approximately 11.5 million went out to those said providers. That's about a 5% increase from our inaugural year back in 23-24. That was the first year that we did CQI awards. As far as what those, if you remember, the CQI awards can be spent very broadly. They can be spent on staff. They can be spent on the program itself, on minor renovation projects, for example. The top 4 that are the most frequently used based on the data I had as of last Friday is staff compensation and bonuses, program supplies and equipment, operating expenses and minor renovations, and number 4 is any type of professional development that they might want to use for their staff. So those are the 4 top. I just thought those are just a little interesting tidbits there about how we ended the 24-25 year. As I said earlier, we did send out a little teaser email this morning. The official announcement is scheduled for this Thursday, which I believe is July 31st. So there'll be an official press release and something through Early Ed News. And just as a refresher, the CQI awards are not something that a star 2, 3, or 4 provider needs to apply for. They will receive an eligibility and acceptance letter from their ELRC. Again, we're trying to take the burden off of the provider. It's the same thing as it was the previous 2 years. They'll get a letter in the mail telling them, you know, you're eligible. Here's what you're eligible for. If you're interested, please let us know. Just looking at my notes here. The grant amounts are the same as they were in 24-25, as they were last year. And as far as when they should expect their eligibility and acceptance letter, it's going to be sometime in this early fall time. September, early October is probably when they should be expecting to receive it in the mail from their ELRC. So I will stop there. If there are any questions, feel free to come off mute, or I can peruse the comments for the next 5 or 10 minutes. Thanks, Netta.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. I will stop sharing, Neil, if you would like to take over.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you, and I'll pass it over to Phil first.
Yep, greetings from Penn State. It's good to be here and provide a update on some of the work we're doing in partnership with OCDEL as part of PDG and also Market Rate Survey. It looks like we are last update on the agenda before open forum. So we can go through our 5 or 6 slides and be happy to answer any questions. So for the first update, this is the market rate survey. And Neil, I'll let you take over.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. Thank you all for having us today. The one thing that I wanted to talk about was the upcoming market rate survey. So we are excited at the Institute of State and Regional Affairs to once again partner with OCDEL to administer this year's market rate survey. So today I just want to provide a little bit of background information and some logistics about the market rate survey coming out in the fall. So just to put this into a little bit of context, the market rate survey will be conducted at the same time as a narrow cost analysis, as you can see on the screen. The goal of the market rate survey, as probably most of you know, is to understand private pay tuition rates and other facility information at the statewide level. This is used to update and set MCCA rates. The narrow cost analysis, on the other hand, is an in-depth analysis of the cost of care with a smaller representative sample of providers. In the end, both of these will be used in tandem for a final comprehensive analysis that looks at the relationship between private pay tuition rates, the cost of care, and subsidy rates. Today, I'm mostly going to be focusing on the market rate survey since that is the bigger initiative, statewide initiative, but please be aware that the market rate survey is happening in this context of this larger project with OCDEL. So we are excited to announce today the official dates and logistics for the market rate survey for 2025. The market rate survey will be conducted September 8th to December 8th. It is conducted every 3 years. So we are doing it in the fall this year. Hopefully that's a little bit easier than the last time when we kind of straddled the summer to fall window. All licensed childcare providers who charge private pay tuition rates are encouraged to respond. And there's a 3-month window to participate. We have a number of different ways that providers can respond. They can participate on paper, mailing it back to us in a prepaid envelope on the web or over the phone, and it will be available in both English and Spanish. Respondents have the opportunity to enter to win a $100 electronic gift card. So we have 100 electronic gift cards to give out at the end as a raffle to market rate survey responses. Our methodology here probably sounds familiar to what we did in 2022 because we're happy. In 2022, we had a great response rate. We had almost 70% of providers throughout the state respond. So we're kind of doing a lot of things, again, learning from last time and also making improvements as we can. So one of the biggest changes from last time that I just wanted to mention today to SAC was that tuition rates reported in the market rate survey will not be imported into Pelican. This is something that we learned last time. It didn't quite go as planned. It was a little bit time consuming. So we are keeping the market rate survey completely separate from Pelican or any other systems this time. A note about the questions on the market rate survey. The questions were developed in collaboration with OCDEL, and we did receive feedback from the most recent CCQR subcommittee meeting. We already incorporated those into the survey, and thank you all for providing that feedback if you were on that meeting and were able to provide it during that time. On the survey, providers will see questions about private pay tuition rates, payments and fees that are charged to families, and key facility information. We are very cognizant of providers' limited time to participate in things like that. So we kept the survey to just the information that we need, and completing the survey is expected to take no more than 15 minutes. So hopefully low burden sometime between that 3-month window to participate. And finally, here's how you all can support this initiative. Look for market rate survey communications. When we launch in September, there will be lots of communication from us at ISRA and the PAKey and OCDEL, so it will not be a surprise. Providers, please participate if you are eligible. The more responses we get, the more accurate the analysis and the data that we present to OCDEL, and the more representative MCCA rates are in the future. Please also spread the word and encourage other providers to participate in the survey when it goes live. We are also happy to consider attending gatherings, conferences, meetings between August and November, just to spread the word a little bit, make sure people have the information that they need and how they can participate and why this is important. I'm not sure how much time we will have today for questions or discussion, but if anybody has a question for us about the market rate survey or any gatherings or meetings that we could be invited to just to share a little bit of the blurb about the market rate survey, please reach out to us. Our email is on the screen. That goes to all of the project members. And we'll be happy to get back to you as soon as we can. So that's what I have. I will turn it back over to Phil. And I see there are some questions in the chat as well.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you, Stephen. So the market rate survey is actually a requirement of CCDBG grantees, must be conducted at least every 3 years. And you know, we can look at the CFR for the details, but essentially states set their subsidy rates in a way that is informed by the data reported in the market rate survey. Perhaps OCDEL may want to jump in, but as an example, the previous market rate survey was used to update the MCCA's first to the 60th percentile and then later to the 75th. So it's very consequential, and it's important that we have a robust and representative response from providers, and hopefully we can you know, request some assistance in not only communicating the ways to complete the market rate survey, but also the importance of doing so, so that we can have the data there and have it be available to be used for future rate setting and other potential policies to invest in childcare. Andrea, I see your comment. Bots, yes. So we have certainly encountered bots in different data collections. For this particular survey, there will be some things we put in place to reduce bots. One of those being that we will have folks enter their MPI number, and then after entering their MPI number, confirm that the provider information for that MPI is correct, so that they then will complete the information if they do so online in ways that is linked only to that individual provider. If they enter their MPI and a survey has already been completed, they will be informed that one has been completed. And if they think that is an error, they will have a link to be able to contact us and let us know that as well. So it's not, I'm sure there will be some bots that potentially come through, but we have several things in place to try to reduce that, and thank you. Okay. So I'd like to transition and just talk about an opportunity and some work that's going on. All PDG grantees, Pennsylvania being one, have some PDG grantee requirements, various tasks. One of those is to conduct a planning process. And the Penn State team, which is a research partner, has been tasked by OCDEL to support that planning process through different data collections and facilitation of discussions and planning activities. And so there are several things that have been done now and others that are ongoing. I'd like to update you on those and invite you, as we have at the last quarterly meeting, and many of you may have been contacted by NETA again, invite you to get involved. So some of what we have done already is just to do a landscape analysis of other state early childhood strategic plans. We've reviewed all that we could find, more than 40 states. We've also looked at Pennsylvania existing documents, ECCS strategic plans, older documents, as well as more current state reports and policy briefs. And all of this has helped us establish sort of a baseline or a landscape picture of what's happening nationally and where we've been in Pennsylvania in terms of identifying and articulating objectives that can be included as part of a new strategic plan. Just to give you some high-level findings nationally, you would not be surprised that there are some common priority areas across many states related to things. In fact, many of these are names of some of the SAC subcommittees, but we've also seen some emerging innovations, not necessarily endorsing any of them. Things such as AI-enhanced family navigation, different funding models, and thinking about other ways to leverage and incorporate data in decision-making and operations. So having this as one piece of background, we are moving into a activity of asking for insight and perspectives from experts using a methodology called a Delphi study. And so you can go to the next slide. The goal of using this particular method is that we will have some transparency and hopefully validity in our results from seeking input from many experts. And Neil, I don't know if you've frozen, but if you could just move on to the next slide, that'd be great. Thank you. So this expert panel has already started. Our goal is to surface and refine some ideas from a broad range of expert perspectives through multiple rounds. And in fact, many of the subcommittee report outs that were earlier in the agenda, I think were exciting for me to hear, because I think we would like to also include many of the updates and findings and new directions as part of this expert panel. Some emerging themes from round one. This is really just illustrative, so don't expect these to be in any way final, but to give you a sense, we're already seeing some very thoughtful feedback that's big picture and also practical around system opportunities. We're receiving a lot of great insight around system challenges, and even receiving some specific recommendations for what Pennsylvania can and should do next. And so I invite you, and please feel free to reach out and also connect with Netta to consider adding your voice to this process, because we really would like to have more voices included. The first round is going to be completed soon, and if you were not able to participate, that's fine. What we will be doing is synthesizing and anonymizing the information we receive, presenting that back to then ask for ratings of agreement, as well as clarifications, looking for gaps, and then also adding in some new types of prompts, looking at things such as feasibility, sustainability, and getting all the way down to key performance metrics. So I will end here and thank all those who already have expressed interest and participated, and be happy to answer any other questions and help you get connected with this activity, with this expert panel process if you are interested. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Phil.
much.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Lynn.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was one question from Kristen. Has OCDEL Penn State processed all the feedback that has been provided so far to share what's being incorporated into rollout/outreach strategy, survey format, etc.?
Is that related to the market rate survey or to something else?
Yeah, that's about the market rate survey.
Yes, so we have received feedback and that has been incorporated already. We are working with OCDEL to finalize the survey format at this point. I don't know if it's something more specific that you were wondering.
I can also jump in here. There were kind of a couple of different buckets of feedback that were received from SAC. All of them are important. We already did a line-by-line review of the survey questions. That was kind of the easiest one for us to handle and just kind of go through the feedback that we received on each survey section. And we reviewed that with the OCDEL team, and we have incorporated that already. A lot of the other feedback that we received was about communication, messaging, and just kind of the broader project. We are thinking about our best way to message, and that feedback will be incorporated as we start to roll out our broader communications with the field. And one thing that we are definitely doing as a result of that feedback is setting up some sort of landing page online for providers to get as much information as possible. That was one kind of theme that we heard, is just making sure that providers have the information that they need about the project and about the market rate survey. So that will also be incorporated there as well. Does that answer?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. On the outreach strategy part, I guess I'm curious, as one of a number of groups here that could help get the word out and encourage participation, how much might we expect in terms of direct support on like template messaging and things like that from OCDEL? where we could all be saying the same thing, or should we just go ahead and do some work to plan to message that out on our end?
Kristen, do you mean helping providers understand the format and how to enter the information appropriately? I just want to make sure.
No, more so, look, this thing is happening. If you get requested to participate, please participate. This is why it's important, that kind of thing.
So Kristen, we usually have some ongoing meetings with some of our stakeholders. So once all of that information rolls out, we will certainly talk about a more coordinated approach to sharing this information and how to get it out across all of our stakeholders. I think we are initially just having some preliminary conversations to really get people to understand that we heard their feedback, we're implementing their feedback, and here's what the next steps will be as we move towards a new market rate year, survey year.
Okay, thank you.
Netta, are we ready to move to public participation in the open forum?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
And
excellent.
any further comments can certainly go in the chat as well.
Okay. This is your opportunity. We have lots of folks here who are very knowledgeable and can answer your questions. If you have an inquiring mind and you'd like to know the answer to something, please kindly speak up now so that your questions can be addressed. So Netta, it seems like there are no additional questions. We do have some meetings coming up. Our next meeting for the SAC quarterly meeting is October 27th from 1 to 2:30. And then for those of you planning for 2026, we'll have additional meetings in January, April, July, and October. Anything else to share?
The only thing I wanted to say about the 2026 meetings, I want to get those out as soon as possible. I know that everybody wants them on their calendars. They will be the same months as they were this year, January, April, July, and October. But I do need to send out a survey that I need everyone to complete on whether you would like to extend your State Advisory Council role into 2026. It's a year extension. Based on when the Early Learning Council transitioned to the State Advisory Council, my role sat vacant for a year. So there is an opportunity to take that 1-year extension if you so choose. It's also perfectly acceptable if after the 3-year term you would like to relinquish and have your State Advisory Council membership passed on to someone else. So just look for that, and I will need a response. So I will hassle you if you don't. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Very informative meeting today. Thanks so much, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.